Okay, I'm using the Kalima SX11 as my hat cam here, which makes me a little uneasy because I'm not very comfortable with it, tell you the truth. Oops, try and point it forwards and whatever. The reason I'm doing that is because I've got the FPV cradle for the Mobius now, so I've got the Mobius mounted here on the Voluntex Ranger in an FPV configuration. Now, I always like to check everything out thoroughly, so I have no intention of actually flying the plane FPV now. But what I do want to do is check the FPV feed and everything, and try and see if everything's working properly. So this is the FPV cradle for the Mobius. It does not come with that aerial, it comes with a straight aerial. I changed it out for that aerial because I didn't, people seem to say it's better to use a multi-directional aerial rather than the straight aerial. The Mobius slides into it here and it connects into the USB port on the back of the Mobius. It has two basic connections. It has a JST connection in the back for power, which puts power into the transmitter, and that also goes through and powers through the USB into the Mobius and powers the Mobius. So the Mobius powers on automatically, like when it's working as a dash cam and whatever. You can set it so the Mobius so it starts recording as soon as it powers on, but I don't have it set that way because I don't want it set that way. But it will power on when the cradle is powered on. The other connection here is a cam out and OSD in. That's so you can basically, that's the video feed from the camera comes out here, and then the video feed to the transmitter goes in there, and you can use that to connect an on-screen display, an OSD. But if you're not using it, you have to put this jumper in here. That jumper comes with the cradle. You have to put the jumper in, else you don't get any video feed to the transmitter. Okay, so I've got this mounted here to the camera mount of the Ranger. I tried using they suggest you can put a Velcro strap through the hole there. That did not work well for me, and it created a rocky, awkward mount that wasn't working well. So what I've done is put a couple of zip ties with a couple of popsicles under, a couple of zip ties across the central bar of it, and tighten them down on a couple of popsicle sticks under there, and hopefully that will work. Okay, so we got the transmitter on. So we need to connect the flight battery. It's all a bit complicated here because we're testing out a bunch of different equipment. I've got the flight battery in there. I'm just trying to cinch the strap down a bit better. I've got the flight battery in there. It's a 3000 milliamp hour Zippy 3 cell. Now then, okay, so now we got power to the plane. Now I'm trying to power the FPV unit off the balance plug of the battery. So I have to plug that in there. There you go. Famous last words. Oh yes, there the transmitter came on, and now the camera has come on. Snap that down there. So we should have a video feed. We should have a VCR feed now, an FPV feed. Okay, so we'll try turning these on. Now, as I say, I'm not going to find. What I want to do is record it in the DVR. So I want to get my Earsheen goggles on here. Oh yes, I already locked it onto the channel at home, so it's locked onto the correct channel already. So we'll go to the DVR of that, which for some reason doesn't seem to be getting such a good feed. It doesn't look as clear to me anyway, whatever. But we'll see. And we'll set that to record. So, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the DVR is now recording the feed from the Mobius. It all gets rather convoluted. Now I'm going to set the Mobius itself to record. You don't have to. It can transmit without recording. Oh, I want to show. Okay. I've changed my mind there a minute. Sorry. I'm going to stop that a minute again. In fact, I think I'll even turn those off again a minute. I missed a step out. I want to switch the Mobius over to 720 pixel mode. Blue light 720 pixel mode. because we don't want with 1080 pixel. It's not helpful to have 1080 pixel. It just creates extra overload that isn't actually going to do anything useful for the DVR feed. So you're actually going to get more lag, and it's going to work worse. So now we've switched it to 720 pixel mode, and we'll start it recording again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we're in 720 pixel mode, we're recording, and then I'm going to set the Mobius to record it's a high definition feed. That will be recorded directly to the SD card in the Mobius. It's a bit confusing. So the Mobius is recording its own, what it sees through the lens, into its own SD card. It's also transmitting it through the video out to the transmitter, which is then transmitting it, which is going to the DVR, which you could use, not the DVR, well, it is going to the DVR, but it's going to the Earsheen goggles, which you could use to fly FPV, and which can also record on their own DVR, but they're recording the feed. All a bit complicated. Okay, so the Mobius is now recording as well. So the Mobius is recording, the DVR is recording. Hopefully this camera on my head is recording, although it cuts out every 5 minutes or whatever, but it doesn't seem to cut out for long. Okay. So I'm going to move the goggles out and put them on the table there by the flight line, because that's a better position for them, hopefully. What's a more realistic position to monitor how the feed's going. We'll put them on this table. I think it's a little drier. And are they still working? Yes, they are. Just want to check. Okay. Now, the next question is, will this thing take off with this weight on? It balances at a reasonable position. I check the center of gravity again, of course. But I've had trouble getting it to move over the grass with weight on and whatever. With no weight on, it takes off okay off the grass now, but it takes a bit of room to move at the best of times, and with this much extra weight on, it's not a lot of extra weight for the DVR. I keep getting my acronyms and things among the cradle. I had the Mobius without the cradle on here before, and we're in high rates. I'm anticipating it will at least need a shove to take off, and it may not take off even with a shove. Yeah, you got to give it a shove to get it going on the grass. I couldn't get it going even with a shove on the dry grass at our club night, but you know, that was an evening with dry grass. Well, and it was somewhat uphill as well. I just couldn't get it to move fast enough. I got it to move, but I couldn't get it moving fast enough to take off. So I ended up having to get someone to hand launch it for me. But every time I've tried it at this field in the morning, I've been able to take it off. Although, as you can see, when it's carrying a bit more weight, you know, like the Mobius and a cradle and whatever, I do have to, even when I put full throttle on, I have to get hold of the rudder and give it a bit of the vertical stabilizer, and give it a bit of a shove to get it moving.
Time remaining 9 minutes.
See how it glides with all this weight on. Still got the original propeller on, which, as we've noted, is not folding, which is unhelpful for the whole gliding thing, but it doesn't glide too badly, really. Of course, naturally enough, it tends to glide better with no weight on. I was flying it with no camera or anything on when I was flying it at the club night, and it glided better there. Might have been a bit of wind helping it as well there, but maybe even the odd little thermal current. It certainly glided a lot better there. Not that it's gliding badly here, but it's, you know, I mean, it's coming down pretty quickly, but it is carrying a fair bit of weight. I've still got the lead in. I didn't take the lead out. I thought I might take the lead out. You know, I certainly considered taking the lead out, and that's obviously an option. I've got 1.5 ounces of lead in the nose, and obviously I could have taken that out when I'm putting more payload on, because we're looking at about Entirely sure, but something like a 2-ounce payload, I think, there. I have to weigh it all, but between the Mobius and the cradle and whatever, and the miscellaneous odds and ends, not that the popsicle sticks weigh much, really, but still, you know, you got all that stuff. And it's got a 3,000 milliamp. I think a 3,000 milliamp hour battery is a perfectly reasonable compromise. I think they recommend a 2200. Well, they went to recommend a 2200 as sort of minimum. And people I've seen, well, no, not with this one, I suppose. With the 2000, it seems like the 2000, the 2-meter version of this is more common. I don't think I've seen any video from anybody else who has the 1.6 meter version of this. Maybe. No, I don't think so. I don't think I've seen anything other than, I think there's a promotional video, which is pretty useless, like a 1.5 minute promotional video, but otherwise I don't think I've seen anything. And that might be a Hobby King Daily or something, but basically it seems like there's a version of this with a 2-meter wingspan, the Ranger 2000, and I think it came out probably before this, apart from anything else, and it's much more common. The problem with, if I bought that, is I would have to take the wings off every time I transported it in my car, which I can do, but it's kind of a pain. I much prefer not to have to do it if I don't have to. This guy is just about the limit. I can just wiggle this guy into my car without taking anything off, which is nice. So I can set him all up with his camera and his wings and everything, of course, ready to go at home, and then just pop him in the car, you know, and he's good, which is it's a lot easier than having to muck around putting wings on and connecting servos up and things on whatever at the field. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think the 1600, although the 2000 version probably glides a little better and whatever, and can carry, presumably can carry more payload without a bomb. But this seems to carry. I'm not really planning to have this carry any more payload than this. This is pretty much with the Mobius with its transmitter, probably is about it. Well, I wouldn't rule out the possibility I might buy an on-screen display at some point and put an on-screen display on it, since it's got the connector for an on-screen display. I even considered getting an on-screen display with it when I bought the Mobius cradle. I bought the Mobius cradle from Hobby King. Let's not go too far that way, but anyway. But still, it's a good test of the FPV feed to see if the FPV feed keeps good when it goes over there. But we don't want to go too far that way. That's how I lost a plane, getting blown with the wind too far that way when the wind was from the south. You see, he is coming down quite quickly. You can see the descent rate. Although he's gliding nice and smoothly, you can see he's got quite a rapid descent rate there. And I can't stop him. You know, if I pull the nose up, he's just going to stall. There's nothing much I can do about that. He's just going to. And that's where the 2000 meter version would descend slower and would carry a heavy payload. But it's not worth it for me for the inconvenience of having to take it apart to transport it. I really don't think. This is pretty good. It's stable. It flies well. I'm fairly happy with it. Oh, no, I don't know. I tend not to finish what I'm saying. I looked at the little, what is it, $25 simple on-screen display that Hobby King sell. But the problem with that is, well, what it displays on the screen is inherently, with its firmware as it comes, is a bit useless. It has a GPS module in, but all it displays on screen with the default firmware is the absolute GPS position that it's getting from the satellites. So, you know, so it displays north 148249872 and west 8212. You know, it just displays north and west and a string of numbers. So that's really, I mean, not terribly intuitive. It's not really a heck of a lot of use. Might help you to find the thing, I suppose, if it went down and if you were still getting the feed, but you probably won't be getting the feed when it goes down, frankly, because you're not going to be, once it goes down, there's going to be obstructions in the way, so you're not going to be receiving your FPV signal when you go down. I guess you could make a note of the last FPV, the last position you saw, and then look it up on a map reference and go and look for it. But really, I can't see I can't see this whole business of just displaying the coordinates is a bit useless. What you want is a home arrow, an arrow that points back towards your point of takeoff, your point of origin, so you know, so you can use the on-screen display to turn it back to you if you're in doubts about which direction you're pointing. But you don't. That $25 OSD from Hobby King doesn't come with that by default. Apparently, you can make it do it. It's capable of it physically, but it's a process that looks a bit more convoluted than I want to get involved in. You have to take it apart and then solder a whole bunch of extra wires onto dots on the board of it, and then buy a programmer separately and somehow hook those wires up to a plug and plug it into the programmer and then reprogram the firmware. I think that's a bit more than I want to get involved with, especially the soldering a whole bunch of little wires to a board. I'm not very good at micro soldering. If it was just a question of buying the programmer and plugging the programmer in and reprogramming the firmware, I've been a programmer for many, many, many years. It's basically pretty much in essence, my profession is programming things for decades, so I don't mind programming particularly, but micro soldering is not something I'm a fan of. I haven't done anything with this other than just fly him in circles, pretty much because I was mainly trying to test the SPV. I suppose we can try maybe a quick maneuver with him before we bring him down. I'm going to bring him down in a minute anyway. It's a little milder this morning at least. It's not quite so. It's not like actually. Yeah. Really, he still flies pretty much the way he flies. I mean, the weight of the the camera and the cradle there don't really seem to have a lot of effect on his ability to fly. I think I'm basically just going to bring him in now. I hope all this is working. I guess the weakest link is probably this SX11 camera on my hat. I know it's not a terribly good camera. It has a dead spot in it, I think, and gentle landing if we can. Whoops, we hit a bit of a bump in the runway there. We were landing quite gently, but we took a hop as we took a bump in the runway. This Killiamer camera, I think it has, if you look at the top right of the screen there's a black spot, I think. It was when I was recording before, and I think it's just a dead spot in the sensor. And then also, it has a kind of hot spot at the middle of the bottom, and sort of kind of rings tend to pulse out from there. At least that was what I found before. So you can see what's happening, but it's not a very high quality unit in terms of what it can record. Yeah, the Mobius is still recording, as it should be. Actually, we might as well. It's wet underneath. We might as well stop the Mobius recording, I guess. Okay, so let's stop the Mobius recording, because it's not going to be record anything useful now. And I will stop the DVR recording, but how are we doing here? Yeah, these tables are actually comparatively dry this morning. Sometimes they're soaking wet, but they're not bad this morning. So we'll just put him down there for a moment, and we'll stop the DVR recording. Okay, the DVR, oops, where are we? The DVR has recorded 13.5 minutes, and it's still got its feed now, so we'll stop the DVR recording. There we go. Now, as I say, the SX11 is the weak link, really. I mean, and the one thing that bugs the heck out of me with the SX11 is it displays absolutely no lights or indicators at all when it's recording. It looks exactly the same when it's recording as when it's turned off. So you're never 100% sure when you set it to record whether you've set it to record or you've just turned it off. Especially since the way you set it to record is you press the power button. So you press the power button. Oh, I thought I'd lost my skid there for a minute, but I was just further out on the wing. So you set it to record, and it's hard to know whether you've turned it off or you've set it to record. We live in hopes, and it can only record 5 minutes at a time, so there's going to be breaks every minute in the video that it's recorded. So even if it has recorded, sorting this stuff out and assembling it is going to be a bit tricky. But anyway, we hope this is recording, although it looks totally as if it's doing nothing. But we'll press the button now to stop it recording and see it.